All right, Satillionaires. Today we have got Meagan in the studio. Incredibly impressive conversation to go from feeling like Bitcoin is a little sketchy to understanding that Bitcoin is worth something, all the way to, hang on, Bitcoin has the power to solve some big problems in this world. So hang on tight. Here's Meagan. Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. So with Sat Chats, we are building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center to serve as your gateway to generational wealth. If you are new to Bitcoin, we want to chat about sats with you. Satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. I'm your host, Stuart Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, proud multi-coiner and Bitcoin smash buyer.
Smash that like and subscribe the same way Chris smash buys Bitcoin. When we hit 999 plus one subscribers on YouTube, we will pick one of you at random and give you 1 million Satoshis. You're going to be an overnight satillionaire thanks to the show. So do it. And do it now. We're also going to be unlocking a live show Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. When we hit that milestone, we'll all jump in together and chat about sats. So we have on the show today our new friend, Meagan. We met at the triangle content creator meetup thing. Mm-hmm. And it was a great conversation, and you decided to hop on the show. So We're going to be talking about Bitcoin today, answering your questions about Bitcoin, and having fun all in that space. But before we do, help all of our satillionaires out there get to know you a little bit.
Well, my name's Meagan Black. I'm an investor. I primarily invest in real estate because I like it because it's real. It's something that I can hold on to. It's something that over time I feel pretty confident in. So when we were talking about Bitcoin, honestly, from my perspective, I'm like, I own some Dogecoin, but it's literally, I think I bought it for point 10 cents or something crazy, and I only did it because my brother told me to. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's go learn about Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm a realtor, by the way, in the Durham Triangle area. So
where can people go if they want to, have you be their real estate agent or, engage with you online wherever you are?
Yeah, pretty much everything's Triangle Home Sales. So triangleHomeSales.com, Instagram handles Triangle Home Sales, Facebook handles Triangle Home Sales. So look up Triangle Home Sales. You'll find me.
Nice. All right. So at Triangle Home Sales for Meagan. And, you mentioned that you had a little bit of exposure to Bitcoin through your ex-husband. So let's hear that whole story.
Yeah. So my ex-husband, he's passed now, but we actually owned Bitcoin in 2008, 2009. But my experience with it was basically, I was a little wild child back in the day, and he was buying Bitcoin to money launder the money so that he could buy stuff on the black market. And so that was truly my experience. Now, I will say we had quite a bit of money back in the day. We were rolling for a minute. I don't know that it was primarily for Bitcoin, but I know we had quite a bit of money, but I didn't understand what he was doing. He was trying to explain it to me, and I was like, whatever. You just do your thing. I'm just here to, collect and have fun.
Yeah. So 2009 is the first year that Bitcoin ever was.
Yeah. So that was probably in 2009.
And they had that, was your husband, your ex-husband, going to the Silk Road to basically,
Yes.
buy drugs for Bitcoin?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He would basically was like, yeah, they're going to give me this number, and this number is like made up, and I put my money in here, and then the number goes here. I don't know if this is true, but like the number goes here, and then we can buy drugs with the number. And I'm like, okay, whatever works for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was able to do that successfully.
Very successfully.
Yeah.
It worked.
With interest, with the profit.
With interest. Yeah. We made money.
So how much Bitcoin do you think your ex-husband had at the height of having Bitcoin to use it on the Silk Road?
Yeah, in like 2009, 2010. I mean, honestly, we probably had about $10,000 in Bitcoin at one point in time.
Right.
At that time.
Okay. So basically, you had exchanged 10,000 US dollars for a corresponding amount of Bitcoin.
Correct.
Okay.
If we had known.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No.
So think about this. In 2009, it's not even clear to me if there was really an exchange rate at that time, right? Most newcomers still talk about the price of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. The price of Bitcoin was $100. The price of Bitcoin is now $1,000 because they feel like they're buying something. They don't think that they're exchanging their money for another money that's better.
Right.
So I use the term exchange rate because I'm done talking about the price of Bitcoin, because that's still Bitcoin in dollar terms, and I'm done. The dollar, it's an artifact. It's a museum artifact. You should frame it on the wall and hang it because it's toast.
Yeah.
So back then, the exchange rate for Bitcoin, I mean, it's not even clear what it was.
No.
Right?
I like I said, I honestly have no idea. I just knew we were putting in money and getting a Bitcoin, and then literally he would just go and buy whatever.
Yeah. And I think I was looking up the other day, Meagan, one of the earliest recorded transactions was something like a guy sold 5,000 Bitcoin for $5 or something like that.
Isn't that crazy?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you bought $10,000 worth of Bitcoin back when people were selling 5,000 for $5, you probably had a nifty squillion Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You probably had, I mean, not thousands of Bitcoin, not tens of thousands, maybe not even hundreds of thousands. I mean, you had to have a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I guess there's only 21 million Bitcoin, so you couldn't have had, I doubt you had a million, but you probably had quite a good, clean amount of Bitcoin. Let's just call it, let's be ultra conservative.
Say 10K.
Let's say 10,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
All right. Because let's say it was $1 per Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. Not 1,000 Bitcoin per dollar when it was 5,000 Bitcoin for $5. Let's say 1 to 1. So do me 10,000 times the current exchange rate. Let's just see what you would have.
$800 million.
Yeah, that one sucks.
$800 million.
Oh,
yeah, great. Yeah.
Insane. And, there are probably a lot of wild childs, like you said. I was one myself, who just had some left over when they quit. When the Silk Road went down, they're like, oh, well, now I got 300 Bitcoin. I'm like, whatever, I'm going to forget about it because it's only $25. And now they go back and find that they have millions of dollars.
That's crazy.
Just because, right?
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, no. When he passed, his sister ended up selling his Bitcoin. It was only like $5,000. And I was like, dang. I was so expecting more. I was like, oh, darn. Like, really? That was it? Dang. We missed our opportunity. But, yeah, so.
So wild. So wild. So when you think about Bitcoin today, like what comes to your mind? How much do you know about it? How do you feel about Bitcoin?
Well, to be honest with you, my only experience with Bitcoin was when I was wild and when I thought it was money laundering. So from my perspective, to be honest, I've always seen Bitcoin as money laundering.
Kind of dirty.
Yeah, kind of dirty money. Like it, I haven't bought any because, to be honest with you, I'm a little nervous about it. Like I know it was tied to the Silk Road. I know it was tied to drugs in 2009, 2010. So from my perspective, and I love how we immediately start the show with talking about drugs. Yay, my history.
No.
But seriously, so that's kind of, my experience with Bitcoin, and it's kept me from buying it, to be honest.
Wow. So I guess what's holding you back from stacking your first sats, so to speak, right? Because sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, is that kind of perception that you have from earlier in time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it doesn't seem, like I said, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to, when you relate something to, money laundering, for instance, it's like, well, is it good though? Is it like if it was made for the purpose of the Silk Road, like, or maybe it wasn't made for that purpose? I don't know. Maybe we just used it for that purpose, but how do you differentiate between using it for that versus now where everybody uses it? I don't know.
So years ago, I'll tell you a little story. I made Rachel Ray's popcorn for my wife. So I followed this recipe, popped some popcorn, and then it called for like butter plus some herbs. Like I think it was like oregano was like the dominant herb flavor.
Jeez.
And you were supposed to like toss this popcorn in this like herby butter and then eat it.
Nobody wants that.
Rachel Ray, dude.
Nobody wants that.
So I made this popcorn for her. And this had to be like 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? She ate it and then got sick and threw up.
Mm.
To this day, we do not use oregano in anything that we produce.
That's awesome.
Because her association with it is, last time I ate, I threw up.
Yeah, exactly.
Same way for you with Bitcoin.
Yep.
Right? Bitcoin is your Rachel Ray oregano forward popcorn.
Yeah, no one wants oregano when you've thrown it up.
I had the same thing with cheese sticks.
SpaghettiOs.
Is that yours?
SpaghettiOs,
Yeah.
I haven't eaten SpaghettiOs since I was probably like 18. Never again.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it's normal. It's natural to make those associations and then to kind of have that bias against it without looking any further. To your point, Bitcoin wasn't made for the Silk Road. It just happened to be terribly useful.
Yeah.
And the reason why it was so useful is because the Silk Road had a libertarian philosophy that its belief was that we should be allowed to transact freely in whatever we may wish. And what a lot of people don't know about the Silk Road is that drugs were only a percentage
Small percentage.
A fairly small percentage, actually.
Yeah. Mind you, we didn't do any like hard drugs or anything like that. But yeah, I remember like seeing the things that you could get on. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was really the Wild West of the internet. Personally, I remember being like, are we good? Like, we probably are. Should we be on here? You know, like this is a little much, but we did it.
So when you're looking to buy and sell things that might make you feel a little sketched out, or like the government's going to come for you, do you really want to use the money that belongs to them, that they give you permission to use, that they can track and follow? Probably not.
Mm-mm.
So instead, you use a form of money that they don't control, that they can't make more of, and that they can't track as easily as they do their own. So for this, for the same reasons why Bitcoin just turned out to be a good form of money for that type of transaction online, is the same set of reasons why we like it today.
Okay.
Because we don't want to say, "Excuse me, sir, may I please spend my money?" Right?
Right.
Nobody wants to go to the bank and say, "Hey, I'd like to, and as a real estate agent, those wire transfers are big, right?
Right.
And there's a ton of intermediaries that need to come in and say, well, hang on, if we're moving this much money, I need to hang on to it. I'm going to take my little slice. Nice. I'm going to pass it on. Next guy, he's going to be the lawyer. He's going to take his piece. We're going to record it, and everybody has to take their little cut on the way through this whole financial system, right?
Right.
And to be fair, all of those trusted third parties play a role in a real estate transaction where you're trying to make sure that somebody pays the amount of money that they're saying they're going to pay for that house.
Right. And
But-
that they have the amount of money that they say.
Right. But when it's just me and I just want to buy something, I don't want to have to go through someone to give me permission.
Right.
You know, I don't want to have to wait for it to be business hours. And I don't want to have to pay people all their cuts to get it through. I want a form of money that I can use whenever I want to buy, you know, whatever I want, I guess within limits. I want a form of money that I have more control over, you know? So the same reasons why Bitcoin turned out to be good for them is part of the reason why it's good for us. You know, it's money that exists online. It's not controlled by anyone. It's controlled by all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use it how we see fit.
Yeah, I was actually watching a video you guys sent me. I was trying to understand. It was like something about there's a bunch of like papers and everyone has to agree to the paper, and I was so lost. I like watched it twice and I was still lost. But I was like, so how does this work? Like, what do you mean when you say it's controlled by us?
Okay. It's a really good question. The you know, Bitcoin is a program. It's a protocol. It's software. It's code. And that means that it operates according to a set of rules. You know, we human beings, we're not predictable.
Right.
You know, sometimes the same input gets wildly different outputs. I can say good morning to a guy one morning and he's like, hey, good morning. And the next day I say good morning to him and he bites my head off because he actually had a fight with his spouse before showing up and he's frustrated and he hasn't had anything to eat. And right.
Mm-hmm.
And we make decisions too. And then we change our minds. So Bitcoin, on the other hand, is like a cold computer program that never gets sick, never takes vacation days, never changes its mind, doesn't have any emotions, and always operates according to a set of rules. Now, some of those rules allow us to operate the network. Here's what I mean by that. When you transact in Bitcoin, and I say, okay, I'm going to send 1 million sats to the person who subscribes to the freaking channel and helps us get to 999 plus 1, right? When I send that 1 million sats to that satillionaire, we're going to say, okay, here's my 1 million sats. Number one, back in 2009, when your ex-husband was quietly buying $800 million worth of Bitcoin, each time a Bitcoin is created, its transaction history is tracked from its beginning all the way to today. Okay. And we won't really worry right now about how Bitcoin is created because that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But just imagine that every single US dollar, as soon as it gets printed, getting tracked all through its life, always. That's very difficult to do, isn't
It's
it?
impossible. Couldn't happen.
Right.
And back in the 90s, we made a game of writing stuff on a dollar bill to see if it would somehow come back to us. Because you're sending that dollar bill off into an absolute nothingness, aren't you?
Yeah.
You have no idea where that money's going.
Right.
You want to talk about money laundering? How about a slip of paper that ain't nobody got no idea where it went?
Yeah.
Okay. Try doing that with a form of money where it's tracked all throughout. Went from A to B, from B to C, from C to A, from A back to B, the whole thing. So when I go to spend my Bitcoin, this network of computers that is powering Bitcoin checks to make sure that that Bitcoin is my Bitcoin. And the way that they check is by looking at the Bitcoin and going all the way back to the moment it was created to make sure that there's no funny business. Nobody tried to control, copy, paste this sucker. Nobody's lying. Nobody's duplicating. They can see the whole history until it gets to me.
Is that called a blockchain?
Yes.
Okay. I've heard the term blockchain, so okay, that makes sense now.
Yes.
The blockchain's like a big Google sheet that every single person on earth can look at and verify for themselves that these transactions have occurred. I dare you to go to the US government and say, please, sir, show me a record of everything you've ever done.
Yeah. Well, my immediate thought is like, honestly, how in the world did it work back in the day with the Silk Road, though? Because, like, if it's tracked, why were we doing that? Why were we putting our money? Why was he calling it money laundering? Because I remember there being there was like a moment where we would be nervous, like, because we would be putting our money into something and then it would be like doing something and then we would get the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think back then it was being used for pure peer-to-peer transactions.
Mhm.
Like there was no, I'm going to take my Bitcoin and I'm going to convert it into dollars and then I'm going to take those dollars and spend it. That's what's happening now.
Right.
So the digital signature and footprint is a lot more robust than it was when you were sending me Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network.
Okay.
Plus, it takes about 10 minutes for the miners to process your transaction. Because again, this isn't being operated by the government. It's not being operated by a company. It's being operated by people who are incentivized to operate it because they get Bitcoin in exchange for their work. And Bitcoin is very valuable.
So also in comparison to like, what does it mean that like we operate Bitcoin? So the US dollar is operated by the US government. It's not decentralized. It's centralized. The Federal Reserve controls, U.S. Treasury Department controls and prints money.
Makes sense.
Out of control at that.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is not centralized. There are thousands of miners all across the globe. There's 21,000 nodes that all run their version of the blockchain on their computer.
Mm-hmm.
All across the world that have to agree if anything changes about that software that is Bitcoin. They can't change the code unless they get consensus across all of the
That's kind of
miners.
like one of the rules.
It's one of the rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So instead of one entity telling us what's going to happen, we all get to agree on what's going to happen next. And so we only really agree on the stuff that is good for everyone to agree to, right? It's not like one winner with a bunch of losers. You know, we're all winners in Bitcoin.
I'm super confused on you said no one really owns Bitcoin. Where did Bitcoin come from?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get there. But for now, let's get back to the idea of me giving you some Bitcoin, right? Once I have that Bitcoin, and it's been, everybody said, yep, I can see it. Yes, I can see it. Yes, I can see it. Then I can send it to you. And then they go, okay, we see the transaction. Yep, we got it. Okay. And now it's Meagan's. And now that is your Bitcoin. And when you go to send it to someone else, they'll go and they'll check all the way back through. So Bitcoin allows individual people to transact with one another in a transparent way that doesn't require anybody to trust anybody, because we can all see it happening. So that's what I mean when I say we operate the network versus a centralized authority. It's decentralized. It's not concentrated. It's spread out.
Okay.
Right? And that's part of what makes Bitcoin secure as well. Because if you want to attack the central authority, wherever that might be, I'll be careful so we don't get shadow banned here. But if somebody was all here and you wanted to get them, you would just go to where they are.
Right.
We're going to lay siege to your town, my guy. Okay. But if you want to attack something that's decentralized, where are you going to go? Where is it? Where is this stuff?
Right.
It's everywhere.
It's a 20,000 headed Hydra. Like, where do you even start?
Yeah.
Right? We're all Spartacus, baby. You know what I mean? Just try. Try to take us down. Try. You can't do it. Right? So it makes it very secure.
I'm still confused on how it got here, though. Because, for me, when I think of, digital, I remember I had a friend who worked, and his job was basically, he was like, I work in the cloud. And I could never, fathom that. What do you mean you work in the cloud? So when you guys are talking about, Bitcoin and there's a history and all this stuff, my mind goes, where? What do you mean there's a history, and where is the history? How did it even get here? What is a Bitcoin? It's a digital currency. I get that, but, blockchain, okay. I still don't know what a Bitcoin itself is and how is it safe. Like, let's say that, you know, I don't know, like something crazy happened and we didn't have, I don't know, like internet or something crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, then what? Then where's your money?
Okay. So this is going to be real good practice for when my wife comes on one day, because she's still like, okay, I know that you feel like it's scarce. I know that you feel like it's secure. I know that you feel like it's permissionless. I know that you have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is the best performing asset of all time. But what is it? And I'm like, oh, isn't that enough, babe? Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, why do we even have to know what it is?
What
like,
else does it need to be?
It went up 100 million %, babe. It went up 100 million %. Like, can you just let me put my money in it, please, babe?
Yeah.
Okay. But she still wants to know, what is a Bitcoin? I'm like, man. And even longtime Bitcoiners often struggle with describing what it actually is. And that is in part because the creator of Bitcoin created something so incredible that 16 years later, we still don't fully realize the ramifications of what he created and discovered. But we're going to try. Earlier in time, there were a group of people called the cypherpunks, online digital movement, kind of a culture. They looked at the way governments abuse their money and decided they needed to figure out a digital money that could be used around the whole world and that could be used as a way to kind of stick it to the man, so to speak, right? If you as a government are going to keep printing money so that the money we're working for is worth less and less over time and we have no control over that, and you restrict it to the borders of your little country there, we live in a digital world. They could see this global internet thing changing the world. And they're like, well, if the internet's going to change the world, we need money to use on the internet. So they tried. A couple of people tried. There was something called Hash Cash. There was some other cryptocurrencies, so to speak, very early. You know, I think Nick Szabo tried his hand. A lot of people tried their hand, but problem with the digital world is that you can copy paste things into infinity, can't you? You can make a Google Doc and then just say, create a copy, like 100,000. So they could create digital money that had properties of money, but they had a hard time figuring out how to prevent people from spending the same money twice.
Right.
In today's world, we have a lot of third parties that help us make sure we're not spending our money twice. The bank will say, well, we see that you withdrew that money from the account, so you don't have it anymore, so you can't spend it twice. Or if you send it through a series of intermediaries or credit card networks, they're all kind of centralizing this transaction data to keep track of whether you've spent your money. Because let's face it, when was the last time you used cash on a daily basis for your transactions?
I don't think I ever have.
Never have.
I don't think I ever have.
Right?
Yeah.
It's gone. And we're getting so far down that pathway that there are restaurants that say cash free.
Right.
We don't even take cash.
Don't give me that.
If you want to transact in cash, go pound sand.
So
okay?
weird.
You better tap to pay, fool, or bring out your credit card, right? And then they collect all this data on you and all this stuff. So anyways.
Yep.
So they tried their hand at digital cash and they couldn't figure it out. Then one day, Satoshi Nakamoto appeared.
Sounds like a samurai,
Sounds
doesn't
like
it?
a bad, but
Great name.
yeah.
Now, this is a pseudonym. What is a pseudonym? Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus are pseudonyms, right? So it is a name that you take in an online space that's not actually your name, right?
Like your Reddit
Right.
handle or something.
Right.
Yeah. So Satoshi Nakamoto is not this person's name, but that is that person's pseudonym, okay? So they are pseudonymous. Now, Satoshi published a white paper, 8-9 pages. It said, hello, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. I have created an electronic peer-to-peer cash. Here's how it works. And inside that white paper was a description of how all these computers simultaneously storing copies of the entire history of this money And checking each other's work and verifying in this fully open source, transparent way was going to be the solution to this double spending problem. Since each transaction can be tracked back to the beginning of all time, if you try to lie to me, I'm going to know it straight away and say, invalid transaction. You can't send me that Bitcoin because you don't have that Bitcoin because you sent it to this guy a year ago, didn't you? Naughty, right? Can't do that. It blew the minds of these cypherpunks, and they glommed on and they helped Satoshi make it better in its early days. Hey, there's a bug here. Hey, there's a problem here, right? And eventually you had Bitcoin out there in the wild. Now, how do you create Bitcoin? Well, you have to mine Bitcoin. How do you mine Bitcoin? You take a computer, you point it at Bitcoin, and you make it work incredibly hard. It basically has to just guess numbers in order to solve a really tough math puzzle. And it's so hard, the only way to solve it is you just have to guess, like billions of times a second. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it? And that creates work, right? That means the computers have to work. You can't just go control, copy, paste. You have to work hard. The processor heats up. The computer's redlining. You remember back in the day where your computer would slow down? You're like, man, how do I control, alt, delete, get my task manager? It's like your computer's at 100%, and you're like, oh, my AOL is so slow, right?
Fans running there.
Yeah. It's like that, but all the time, around the clock. What does that mean? It means that the computers have to work to solve these puzzles to generate Bitcoin as a reward for solving the puzzle, okay? Why are they solving the puzzle? Well, because you and I are transacting. And in order to take the transactions and add them to that big Google sheet in the sky, we need to solve the puzzle that comes with it. If I can solve the puzzle that comes with all these transactions, then I win. I put the block on the blockchain, and the program, the code says this guy gets 50 Bitcoin. And that's how they issued Bitcoin. So that's how it's created. It's created through hard work. Why is this valuable, Meagan? If it's hard work to make Bitcoin, it's incredibly hard work to break Bitcoin. If it's hard work to be truthful with Bitcoin, it's almost impossibly hard work to lie about Bitcoin. What does the U.S. government have to do to work to get its money? They just print it.
Right. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of the American dollar. It's one of the reasons I own real estate, because it's real estate, and then I buy gold. And when I say I buy gold and silver, I mean I literally buy gold pieces and silver pieces because I like to
hold it.
Yeah, I like to know that there's something in my hand that has value to it.
Yeah,
you know?
You're gonna love Bitcoin because you want to take custody of your assets.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not a fan. I remember when you asked, do you want to take the money or do you want to take the Bitcoin? I immediately was like, the American dollar just is kind of I don't know. I don't know what it's doing, I feel like every day the value's dropping a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still, nervous about the idea of Bitcoin because, it kind of makes sense. But again, like I said, what happens? Obviously the internet's not going to actually crash.
Okay, but what happens if the internet goes down?
Yeah.
Well, number one, the satellites in the sky will still continue to operate, and the Bitcoin network is among them. So,
and when you say they're in computers, what do you mean that there are certain people that have these computers all around the world, and they're a part of the Bitcoin team? Do you have a computer that's part of the Bitcoin
network?
I don't. My brother does. And what that means is he's got a computer with a copy of the spreadsheet on it.
That's constantly updating.
Okay. But there are no more Bitcoin now. There's a limited source of Bitcoin.
So there is about 20 million Bitcoin today. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It's going to take another 100 years for these computers to mine the remainder of the Bitcoin, because unlike the dollar whose supply is unlimited, Bitcoin's supply is limited. And the rate at which it is supplied to the people doing the hard work is chopped in half every 4 years. A predictable supply shock that says no matter how much you want it, there's not more of it.
Right.
So the supply and demand starts to go, whoosh, you know, in the beginning, the supply of Bitcoin, it was
easy to get.
So high.
Yeah, for pretty much.
Yeah. And now it's going down, and it's going to go down and down and down and down. And so the demand is going up, supply is going down. You know all about supply and demand. It's all good, right?
Right.
So where is the Bitcoin? Well, the individual coins are with the people who own them. Just like your gold is with you, your silver is with you, right? But the truth about those Bitcoins and where they are and who has them is stored on these spreadsheet. It's one spreadsheet on 20,000 plus computers. And every 10 minutes when they mine a new block, everybody goes, did this happen? Yes, it happened. Yep. Everyone agrees, right? And so you kind of add more blocks with everyone working together to say, yes, we trust you. Yep, that works. It's all good. Make sense?
I literally have an image though of like your brother's just sitting at the computer going, I approve. Like, is that what happens?
They're not doing it manually. It's happening automatically.
Okay.
The software does it.
The computers are talking to one another.
Okay.
Yep. All the computers are speaking to one another.
Can anyone get a Bitcoin computer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All you got to do is download the appropriate software and then download the blockchain, which means 16 years of transactions. And you'll see on the Clark Moody dashboard, there have been something like 1.1 billion transactions in Bitcoin over the past 16 years. So it's like 600, 700, 800 gigs of information that you need to download to your computer. It's going to take a while. Mm-hmm. But once you're caught up, then you're right. And at that point, we trust people that Bitcoin is what Bitcoin is. Right. But once you have your complete copy of that big fat blockchain spreadsheet in the sky, you don't even have to trust anybody at all because you have a literal record of everything that's ever happened.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not realize that was, I was trying to, like I said, I was trying to watch the video and it's like learn. I couldn't quite get it. I couldn't quite grasp it, you know?
Yeah.
But that makes sense now.
What areas of your life would you like to have a complete, perfect record of everything that's happened?
I don't know if I want a record of my life, to be honest. No, I mean, yeah, honestly, where I put my keys would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where I put my wallet, where I put my phone.
Yeah. That'd
be a great resource to have.
Remote control.
Sunglasses.
Yeah, well, I know where mine are. They're always on my face. But like, let's imagine a complete record of your body's health. Wouldn't that be nuts?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You know, where you could see like, am I getting healthier or not healthier? Like complete informational picture. It's insane to think about a form of money with a complete informational picture of itself from all times. So,
what do you see as the future of Bitcoin?
Whoa, bro.
Yeah.
These people are trying to fire me up today, dude.
Yes.
They're trying to fire me up.
Yes.
So here's what I see. Before the age of the nation state was the Middle Ages. And during the Middle Ages, the governments, the kingdoms, the dukes, the principalities, they operated with gold as their money. And you like gold, you hold gold.
Gold, yeah.
Yeah, gold is good. So that meant if they wanted to go out there and do something, they needed to have the money to get it done. If my kingdom wants to attack your kingdom, I need enough gold to pay my farmers to stop being farmers, turn into soldiers, and go attack the neighboring kingdom. And they're only going to do that as long as I pay them. Mm-hmm. And even then, they might be like, forget this. I'm going to go back to my crops, dude, because I got to go harvest them, dude. I'm out of here. That means I can only conduct warfare against you as long as I have money. And when I run out of gold, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world where the organizational structure prints its own money.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
So I can go to war with you just as long as I want. Because what I'll do is I'll devalue my citizens.
Right.
Right? I'll say, okay, all you guys work for moi. Okay? You're going to need to go ahead and get up and get your little coffee and go ahead and get to work there, bud. Right? Because I need you to work for the money that I'm issuing you. Okay? Here's your Chuck E. Cheese bucks, bud. Okay? And then I'm going to take some of that back from you in exchange for you living here. And also when it turns out I'm spending more than that, I'll just print more and give it to myself. Whee!
Right.
Seems like a pretty sweet place to live your life. Am I right? Why would any person give up on that? I get unlimited money, but you don't?
Right.
Who would ever give up on that? So what's the future of Bitcoin? Well, right now, people are realizing that it is digital scarcity. Somebody figured out how to make something digital, unable to be copied. Somebody figured out, hey, if we take this information and we all track it over time, nobody will be able to copy paste it, right? So just like gold, Bitcoin is a real thing that you can't make more of easily. The US dollar is something the US can make more of so easily that it's unbelievable how easy it is.
Right.
But if the US government operated on a gold standard, we would only be able to pay for the things that we actually had money for.
That would be the goal.
Right?
Yeah.
Wars get shorter because you might run out of money fighting them. Budgets get balanced because when you spend your last gold coin, it's gone.
Yep.
You can't just say, well, I still magically have more, guys, right?
It's literally been my biggest issue whenever I talk, because I talk politics a lot, and whenever I talk about it, I'm like, the biggest thing we did to destroy our economy was go off the gold standard.
Yep.
That was the destruction of our economy.
Yep. Right? Because we went from a hard money to an easy money.
Right.
And when you go from a hard money to an easy money, your wealth is destroyed. And when you have an easy money and someone else has hard money or money that's harder than yours, your wealth goes to them. Okay? The hardest money hoovers up all the wealth because it's so much harder to get than these other forms of money. So, could be great to get back on a gold standard. I wouldn't hate it. It would right size the government because the gouvernement amount could only be as big as it had money. Right? And they would need to tax us appropriately. If they said, well, guys, let's go back to a gold standard. In order to continue operating as we do, we are going to go ahead and need to tax you about 90% of what you make.
At this point.
Could you imagine only getting one out of every $10 you earn with your hard work? You would be a furios. You would be so angry, correct? And you would say, hey, government, let's have a quick conversation about which services you're providing me and whether I even like them or whether I'm paying the right amount of money for them, right? So it would kind of reconnect each government and its citizens to the true cost of what is going on. And then you create a dialogue where the citizenry actually regains its power over the government versus the other way around. Okay. So why don't we just go back to a gold standard?
Because we could afford it.
Because we can't afford to go back on a gold standard?
I think that's what I would think right now. Like, we couldn't, as a country, afford to go back on the gold standard because we would devalue the physical dollar so much that our country would go bankrupt.
So that's kind of interesting.
That's
kind of
my
interesting.
thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of interesting where it's like, do we even have what it takes to get on a hard money standard? That's insane. So I'll have to chew on that concept for a while, late at night. That's going to keep me awake at night. But let's imagine that we had what it took to get back on a gold standard. Okay, great. I'd like to do some trade with Angola. How easy would it be for me to send 2 bars of gold to Angola from the United States of America?
Be a little process.
Be a little process, yeah. And how easy would it be for someone to find it and grab it on the way, and then it's gone?
Right.
Kind of
Yeah,
easy.
it's risky.
Right? So then I'm like, well, you know what? I should create a digital network on top of this gold, where I'm going to call them dollars, and then I'm going to send you dollars. You would just print paper, right? Because the gold physically is so heavy that large transactions internationally, they're a little tricky.
Right.
And it would take even if it could somehow be fully protected, it would still take as much time as it takes for gold to get there, which in a plane, maybe it's a couple of hours. On a boat, maybe it's a couple of months, right? Short story long, even though gold is the hardest money ever until Bitcoin, it still has one big problem. And its problem is the thing you like about it most, which is what?
It's real.
It's real.
Yeah.
That's its biggest limitation, is that it's real. So then you have to actually get it where it needs to go, and it's heavy. It's not secure. It could be a big problem. Okay. With Bitcoin, since we have figured out a way to create a piece of digital information that cannot be manipulated, it's effectively digital scarcity. There's only 21 million Bitcoin, or in another way to say it, this program is only 21 million units of information. That's it. And so that digital scarcity, we have monetized it because we're like, wait, this digital scarcity actually makes a really great money because we know exactly how much of it there is. Just like gold is rare, Bitcoin is even rarer. It's easy to break it down as small as we want. We can have a bar of gold. We can have a gold coin. We can have a Bitcoin. We can have a Satoshi, right? And we can think about it in terms. We can think about other things in terms of it. Hey, this is worth 600 ounces of gold. This is worth 600 Bitcoin. Ain't nobody rolling up to the car lot and saying, this car is worth 36% of my house.
Right.
Or you know what this car is worth? 1.5 barrels of oil. Could I give you 1.5 barrels of oil for this car? You can't, right? So gold and Bitcoin both have excellent money properties. But guess what? If I want to do business with Angola from the United States, 10 minutes, it's done. Bitcoin is yours now. So what's the future of Bitcoin? Right now, it's doing its thing. It's all good. We're all still learning about it. We all still think it's Rachel Ray's oregano popcorn. It ain't. But in the year 2138, when all the Bitcoin has been mined, and I believe that we will have figured it out by then, that Bitcoin is the hardest money ever created or discovered, and that it's perfect for the digital age because it allows us to exchange value with one another without having to trust each other, because the history of it is all right there for you to see. So what happens? Well, one option is that the nation states adopt Bitcoin and they ultimately decide to jump onto a Bitcoin standard where they say, well, we still have US dollars, but instead of the US dollar being backed by absolutely nothing, we're going to issue an amount of dollars that represents the amount of Bitcoin we have, and we won't issue more, right? That
so
could
like
be
the Bitcoin standard, basically.
Yeah. So, you were on a gold standard. Now you're on a Fugazi standard. Let's get on a Bitcoin standard. So it could help make the nation state a more responsible form of government where we would go to war with someone because our primate status were threatened and we needed to go ape on someone, right? And say, big America, big silverback. You know what I mean? So if we do that, then we run out of money and go, okay, guys, do you guys want to negotiate a truce? Because we're tired, right? So one option is the nation states get limited by their money, which would be quite nice.
Right.
I think that would make the world immediately a healthier place for nation states to have their power limited by the amount of money they have.
Mm-hmm. And the power is kind of held by the people, because the people own the computers that have the spreadsheet that is Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And Bitcoin itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The spreadsheet is the record of all transactions. The coin is the coin.
Okay.
Right.
So the coin is just like a thing.
It's
like
a unit.
Okay.
It's like Guardians of the Galaxy. Hey, pay us 800 credits for our work retrieving this bleep blurp from the aliens. You know what I mean?
Right.
Bitcoin is the intergalactic credit, or the digital unit. There's two more futures that I see for Bitcoin, but we're going to save them for another episode because we got to recap the conversation here with Meagan today.
Baller.
So this has been a wonderful conversation. This, what we had Meagan on the show. Okay. Investor. I liked that. That was the first word, investor. And then real estate agent. Durham likes that area, understands that marketplace.
Gold.
And also has gold and silver. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And it's at Triangle Home Sales everywhere she appears on the internet if you want to engage. So you are an investor, a real estate agent. Your earliest experiences with Bitcoin was your dead ex-husband buying $10,000 worth of Bitcoin to money launder his way onto the Silk Road and get some droogs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that put a bad taste in your mouth, almost like hummus out of a round tub.
Oh, it's the worst.
Just a real pasty,
horrible,
tasty, gross.
You got to get the square tub.
As the first satillionaire Lucola will say, ooh, gross. And that meant you left it alone for a long time. And poor old Bitcoin's like, sorry you feel this way about us, but we're just going to keep chugging, Meagan. Like,
I lost how much money?
800 million. Could have had $800 million. What's the operating budget of Durham?
It's got to be less than
right?
800
What's
mil.
the annual operating budget of Durham? Can somebody tell me what that is? Right?
Let's see.
Because if you had hung in there, Bitcoin keeps rolling.
I could have just bought Durham.
You wouldn't be a real estate agent for Durham. No. You would be Durham.
Yes.
Okay, you'd be close. It's 966 million
a year.
Yeah.
Durham has to spend $1 billion a year on itself.
Yeah.
For what reason? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you could have had almost the operating budget of Durham for a year up in here just for your own self.
Yep.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Bitcoin, like gold, is not something a government can make for itself. It's real, even though it's digital.
It's digital real.
It's a real piece of information that can't be reproduced. Because
I think you sold me.
Scooboosh! Woo!
That's why we're here.
So if we can adopt it globally and recognize that this digital scarcity can be monetized and turned into the greatest money of all time, then you have a scenario, 1 out of 3, where the government is right-sized as a result because they're limited by the amount of money they actually have. So
that's what sold me. I like the idea of, listen, I'll be honest with you. Previously, when we talked about like I've talked to people about like everybody being on the same standard, that kind of scared me. It's like, I don't know if I want that, but hearing what you guys are saying about where we kind of run it, we kind of control it. Then if it's controlled by us, if the money is controlled by us, then the governments would be controlled and limited by the money that we control. That just makes sense to me.
That's it.
So this is so impressive, Meagan. Here's why. Sat Chats is for Bitcoin beginners. Almost every single one of us comes at Bitcoin in dollar terms. And so we want most satillionaires to stack their first sats with the hope that the value of their stack will go up over time, protecting them from inflation, protecting them from how expensive everything gets, and giving them something that they can store their value in that can't be manipulated by others, that can't be devalued. So what you did today that's impressive is you got a step further, right? We didn't just stop at Bitcoin is the greatest money of all time and you should stack some sats. You were able to go even further and say, well, hey, if it's money we control and we have to work for Bitcoin, then corporations have to work for Bitcoin. Nation states have to work for Bitcoin. Everybody has to work for Bitcoin. Nobody gets to get Bitcoin for free. Everybody has to work for Bitcoin, which means the government will be limited by how hard it works. Whoa! Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
Not just how hard it works, but how much value that work actually creates.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to work hard. It's another thing to create value.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because then as a government, you have to compete for my business, just like a company. You know, you had to be like, well, hey, if you come to my country, we don't actually have any taxes on capital gains for Bitcoin. You want to live here? Hey, you know what? Okay, I'll come to you. You know, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
So very impressive conversation, I think, from Meagan. Highly, highly intelligent to be able to go that extra step further. And we do believe that if we can just get every single human being on earth to stack their first sats, they will start to learn more and they'll get as far as you did. They'll go even farther and farther and farther. And one of those three possibilities will be that more right-sized governmental experience. So we're going to make an offer to you here on the show in exchange for your time. But before we do, we're going to take a little brain break and we're going to try out a flavor of Ithaca hummus. So can you tell us which flavor did you choose?
I chose the dill and lemon. I'm pretty excited about it. I looked up the ingredients too, and they're all whole foods. So I'm super stoked.
There we go.
Yes. Nothing processed.
All right.
None of
go
that.
ahead and grab yourself a woven wheat, unbranded woven wheat cracker.
Yep. Get you a fat glove. We'll all take a chomp at the same time, okay?
Okay.
I saw you going for it.
I was going for it.
And for
Smells
all
good,
the
too.
for all the satillionaires out there listening, if I am correct, there is one episode where the guest cracks down on the cracker before the rest of us.
Oh.
I want you all to find which episode it is that the guest jumps the gun on the crunch. Put it in the comments of Meagan's episode. We'll do a YouTube short just for you. Tell us what you want us to say, and we'll make it happen. All right, here we go.
Cheers. Yep. That's a good batch.
That's really good.
That's so dilly.
It's so good.
Love that one.
You got a little bit of dill, and then that lemon kicks in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
For real.
It's super flavorful. That's like low-key one of my top flavors.
Where do we get this?
Whole Foods, Sprouts, Harris Teeter, Publix.
Okay.
We buy at Wegmans.
Wegmans, yeah.
So here in
course.
Raleigh, we go to, our grocery stores are Wegmans and Costco. So we get our Ithaca hummus, me and my wife, at Wegmans.
It's delicious.
Yes. So Ithaca hummus, lemon dill, buy the dip.
It's really good.
Whew. Now let's make Meagan her offer.
All right, Meagan. So as Stuart mentioned, we believe in value for value here on the Sat Chats podcast. So as a small token of our appreciation for your time today, we're going to offer you the choice between $50 US right there.
USG on the USD.
Honestly, the case is probably worth more than what's inside. That museum quality glass right there.
Considering this little piece of Wimbledy Nimbledy is worth nothing, yes.
Okay, or $50 in Bitcoin. Looking at the Clark Moody dashboard right back here, one Bitcoin is worth, the exchange rate of one Bitcoin is $80,210 or 1,247 sats. I got to change that. 7 times 50 is 62,350 sats or $50. What's it going to be?
I'm gonna take the stats.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Boom.
Always
There
the
we
right
go.
choice.
Come on. Oh,
Yes.
let's get them. Let's stack the sats.
Let's
You can take
get it.
that little museum artifact back. Get back on the shelf. How dare you? Get into the corner and think about what you've done. So thank you so much for keeping our streak alive. Our score is now 34 guests who stacked the sats and 3 who were like, I love money, but not really.
Not really.
So if you've made it this far in the show, give us your value for our value. Smash the like and subscribe. I think a single button click or screen tap in exchange for 1 million sats has got to be the greatest ROI of all time.
I can't think of a better one.
They're going to say these guys dropped $1 million on somebody 10 years from now. I mean, these guys were insane. So get us to 999 plus 1 subscribers on YouTube. We will choose one from among you subscribers, and we will make you a satillionaire overnight. We will also unlock a live show Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Meagan will be in the chat, sitting on the annual operating budget of Durham, because she will have stacked those sats and watched them go whoosh to the moon.
Goals.
And in 9 months, we'll see where Meagan is. It's going to be a great update on her Bitcoin baby. So remember, Sat Chats is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. Also, our guests' views are their own. Thanks so much, Satillionaires. We'll see you on the next one.